Good morning and welcome back to the Opportunistic Trader for August 29th, Wednesday, midweek, hump day. It's been a fairly quiet week all around, except the obvious. S&P goes up every single day of every single week of every single month. But other than that, scanning across, let's start yesterday overall with our trades, and Vince is kind enough to join me as my sidekick on,
Thank you for
on the
having
program,
me.
and he'll go over his trading after I go through my spiel on the market. But for me yesterday, it was slightly unimpressive. I'd been short Apple. I was actually up on it 3 days ago, held it too long, got stopped out, looking to stop back in. I think the stock will come in, but right now, no position there. Took the loss, took it on the chin, wasn't happy. Went home long some crude oil. It traded lower a bit yesterday into last night and traded higher today, and we kicked that out for a small profit, but a profit nonetheless. So right now we're pretty clean on positions. We don't have much going on. I'd like to short S&Ps in here. We'll go over my thought process on that after I go through the markets. But right now, no positions, and not a bad place to be. Just scouring markets, looking for opportunity. Going across the board in Asia last night, markets were mixed. China again down small. Nikkei and Hang Seng up very small. Europe is mixed as well, but mostly slightly higher. DAX was lower this morning, turned a bit higher, under 10 or 15 basis points, and the FTSE is about 10 or 15 basis points lower, so not getting much from Europe and Asia. Looking at our markets, S&P is up small, but it's again up, and it's trading at about a $4 premium. NASDAQ is a bit stronger than the S&P. See if that trend holds or reverses. Looking at our markets, today is an expiration, and the straddle is literally pricing in nothing. It's less than $6. They're disrespecting pretty much every put on the board. So, by looking at that, we're not looking for an extreme move. Obviously, this is probably a mark job into month end. So we're leery of that. And interesting trade in bonds and 10 years again. Gunlock on the low came out at about 281, 82, and said yields were going lower, and of course they went higher. And he could be in that trade for 2 years, so he'll be right at some point.
Or he could have been unwinding on his own commentary.
And we know that. But in general, those things have backed up. But what is most interesting to me in the market for now is, the Turkish currency is back to 650. The high was in the low $7, so that traded into the middle fives. It's up 4% today, so I guess their issue is still there. Our markets don't care about it. It's a 1 or 2 day fake thing to get everybody short so they can disregard it and run the markets up. So we're always looking at that. And then the little fake problem before that was the Italian bond yields, and those yields are on the 10-year about 320, and they're still basically on the high and even making new highs. So I guess they think there are issues there, but it's not being printed. So those, unless we have a down day, and then they'll throw that in as the reason. But those things are, sort of takeaways from me. And the market's making new highs here in the equity platform. And, I'm thinking that these are the highs, and it should be an interesting second half of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, and we're going to get some volatility in here again. Volatility was higher yesterday, and just surprised about that. And other than that, I don't really have much. Oil looks a little bit strong, gold a little bit weak. Gold is lower, but it's pretty much flat from where it was at 4 o'clock. The move happened from basically the close at 1:30 till 4 o'clock, and currencies are flip-flopping. Euro traded above 117 yesterday strongly and reversed the whole move today. So dollar is a bit stronger, and that's it for my perch. And I'm interested to hear from Vince what his thoughts are for today's trade.
Let's get gold out of the way because I think currency pairs are probably something to touch on. Thank you, Larry. And I want to just take a quick look at Bitcoin and ask you your thoughts on individual equities. Gold yesterday, if anyone was in the chat, I got a sell signal on the system that I use on the hourly. And this is important because this was a losing trade for me that was a good signal. A lot of times I'll get stopped out of these and the system will end up stopping me out appropriately, but will end up being right. The system I use, which is volatility based. In the 12 o'clock Eastern hour, I got a sell signal for momentum purposes for the next 3 hours to sell it. I sold it around basis fees 1213.80, I think. And my stop loss was practically the high tick of the hour. My stop loss was 12. I'm looking at it here. Okay, I'm looking at spot. That's right. Sorry. Fees again, folks. 1213.80 is where I sold it, and my stop level was stopped out in the same hour at 1214.90. Okay, when you look at that, and then you look at the next hour, and the next hour, and the next hour, we just fell off the table right after I got stopped out. That's because I use very tight stops, and clients and other people who use a system like this might give themselves more tolerances, like a higher stop loss. But that system said to get short yesterday, and I missed that trade. Now we're in a trading range that has basically nowhere to go unless there's an event. So we are in basically gold is in a downtrend, a bear market within a 5-year trading range, and then within that we had a little short covering rally. So far, I can't get excited about it. I think more interesting, but that's color for people who are trying to figure out how to trade volatility without options. I think it's interesting to look at possibly, although it's doing nothing right now, the Canadian dollar, U.S. dollar pair, because Friday Trump has claimed that the U.S. deal deadline is unmovable, and to completing a new NAFTA replacement type of thing. And this is, I think, important. Whether it's important or not, the markets may react to it because Canada has had little time to get involved in this conversation. So expect possibly some short-term volatility in Canadian U.S. dollar. On the commodity side, I'm looking at crude today, and I missed the move, a signal, because it happened last night. But I do see now, looking at 69.14 and 68.40 as levels to pay attention if you're buying dips and selling rallies, or vice versa. Larry, on the equity side, do you have anything that you want to look at specifically that people were talking about in the chat room yesterday?
Not particularly. Obviously, in the equity chat room, we had some good calls on a number of stocks. Apple's still mystifying me and market participants. Market is very, very long in the name. It just keeps rallying. The FAANG overall was mixed yesterday. For some reason, there must be some news on Amazon. It's up about 1%, which isn't really much, but when you look at the stock, it's up $25, trading at almost $2,000.
Right.
I was discussing with a friend of mine yesterday who we started in the business in the 80s, and the biggest blue chip of life at that point was IBM, and that stock was $120, and people were afraid to trade it because it was so expensive. So
Right.
my thought is, I'm not understanding how in any way Amazon it's a great day trading stock for, day trading firms or firms that are maneuvering around with leverage. But overall, as an investable security, I mean, at $2,000, you can't buy very much to, make it make sense. So these prices that I look on my board, they're just mind-blowing. I mean,
Well,
I'm not looking
it's
at valuation. I'm looking at just the price that you have to
just
pay.
a raw value. Remember back then, okay, I was like a fax copier at Lehman. Berkshire was like at $4,000, and I read up on why Warren Buffett did not split it or reduce the price, because he wanted to discourage leverage speculation.
But
Now,
no one even traded that stock back then.
no, that's my point. Now, $2,000 stock is something to trade. How does that happen?
Right. Well, and they trade Berkshire. Everybody has
Right.
an investment there. Back then, no one owned it. It's just interesting and shocking to me to look at the prices and look at where we are and look at who's buying and why they're buying and why they have to buy and why companies continue to do buybacks at any price. Apple's buying back stock. It doesn't matter if the stock goes to 400, they're still buying it back. It's
I know.
it's just,
That's been the driver of the stock rally, and it's just basically
yeah, but it's interesting to me because everything about the rally for 7 or 8 years was the fact that it was QE and the Fed's buying everything and you have to buy, and now it's a complete unwind and it's the same thing. So at the end
why
of
is
the day,
why is this happening?
at the end of the day, it's interesting levels, and it's funny. We were going through Mark Fisher's book, which you could find, excerpts on our site, and he was comparing, like when we made the high in 1929 and how it sort of happened, and it looks very eerily similar to what's happening now. I'm not calling a crash, but it's almost too easy. Every night there's stock for sale on the bell. Every morning the market opens higher. I don't know why. Other than February, the market's basically straight up for the year every single month. So, that's my take on equities. I'm leery. I'm expecting heavy volatility in the end of the third, into the end of the third quarter, fourth quarter. I think the election is the wild card. I think that they're underestimating the fact that Trump could basically get wiped out in this election. Obviously, if he doesn't, it would be shocking to me. But the markets, I guess, are pricing in Republican victory and control of the House and Senate for now.
Right.
So
it's almost like the deplorables are now status quo in the minds of the pollsters.
it's just just on the equity front, just scouring the board. I mean, most markets are down on the year. We're up on the year. We're bid to the moon. It's interesting. It's just interesting in general to see it. I don't know if this is a month-end marking, for another month, but everybody's behind the 8 ball. It's funny. I track a certain fund of funds that I won't mention, and at the beginning of the year, February, March, they were up like 4, and the markets were flat to lower, and they looked like heroes. Now the market's up 9, Nasdaq's up 20 almost, and they're still up 3 or 4. So this is the problem that is out there.
And that's pressure. That's pressure on them, and then it just, I don't know. Is it really any different than interest rates at 0 in your bank account? You're punished for saving, so you have to put your money in the market. So a fund guy has to put his money in the market as opposed to stock selection.
Yeah, but he could do numbers of different things with it. I mean, he doesn't have to chase the market. I mean, they do.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you there. I'm just saying there's pressure.
But it's frustrating just to look at in general. But again, it's dog days of summer. There's not a lot going on. Straddles are pricing that in. There's nothing in it, and we'll sit and wait. But what I find interesting is, these news services, they have to have a reason for every day. So the bottom line is, today we could start out higher and they'll say we're higher, trade fears ease, and then when we're lower, they talk about Italy or Turkey. It's
Well,
it's just the
oil's
patented.
higher on trade fears, and then tomorrow it's oil's lower on trade fears. Or are trade fears alleviated? Question mark. It's not a real, it's a search engine headline.
Yeah. So, again, we're talking just equities. It's a FANG day trading market. You got to look for the ones that are doing better than the others. Today, Netflix looks down, Apple, Facebook, Amazon up. That's the mantra. You could look at banking stocks, mixed. And overall, quiet a little bit into end of summer. I do expect it to get very busy right as we get out of Labor Day weekend. But we'll look at that. Oil is bid very strongly today. It's a delayed reaction, I guess, to the 430 number because the market didn't trade that much higher. We have the number at 1030. Yeah, it's a weekly thing, but it's either all bid or all offered. So you got to trade accordingly. And your favorite gold is hanging at about 1210. Can't get above really 1220. Hasn't really been below 1200. So for me, looking at it, it looks like it's stuck in a range, and it's actually acting not so terrible basis the currency.
It is not. It is not. But I would just I would just say, and it hates the teens. The easy money's over. If we get into the teens again, we probably will break the 20s. But until we get above, say, 15, forget about it. Like, it's trading range with a bias lower. That's what I would say. You could buy rallies here. You could buy it here for a rally to 15, or you can sell it below, 05 down to 0. There's really nothing to do except sell a straddle and buy a put. That's how I look at it. So, I know I'm biased, but that's why I'm selling a straddle and buying a put today, in my mind.
Are you doing that in the front? When does that expire? Friday?
No, I'm not really doing that. I'm just saying I'm doing that in my mind. That's how I keep myself objective. Every trader is objective, right? Every trader has a bias. And I think the key is knowing your bias. And one of the ways I test myself is, am I a buyer or sell a straddle today? And that's something you probably do all day long. And then I'll ask myself, all right, I have to do something against it. So basically, what leg of an iron butterfly will I not put on? And today, if I'm a seller of a straddle and a buyer of a put, that means I'm worried about the downside. So, that gives me my own bias. Today I'm bullish, so I'm a put buyer and a straddle seller. So that tells me to be careful of my own system, which is volatility based. I might look for fake breakouts basically today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't see much moving there though. We're stuck.
Right. Can we just touch on Bitcoin?
Sure.
I think we'd be remiss because it is moving, and I know that look, it is a trade. It is a very tradable product, and just from a top-down comment, I think it has had a good run for since the 15th approximately, and I think it's important to note that this has been related to a couple things. One of them has been mechanical. We had a rally, and that had to do with something I'm not really that familiar with, but it had to do with one-time server shutdowns and things like that. And then there's the ETF listing and delays. Right now, though, I just would like to throw a couple numbers out there, and these are not based on technicals or based on feel for the market. It's just system-based stuff, and I'm refining it now, but this is what I see. I see on a 4-hourly basis, we are overbought, and if you're long, you would get out here. If you wanted to get short, you could get short and risk new highs. On the daily basis, which is actually the most reliable on this market, we have had a signal that looks like it's going to have a target of like 71.97. We'll call it 7,200. On a weekly base, on a 1-hour basis, on an hourly basis, I think anything below 70.20 should be looked at, and anything above 70.93 should also be looked at as either something to fade or something to go with. Those are inflection numbers. That's all I'm throwing them out there as. So.
Okay.
We'll
I'm
be
not
starting
a
to trade that soon, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really trade Bitcoin. We have very good coverage in our crypto room on that. Um,
And I'm going to be I've already tapped into the knowledge there. So that's been important to understanding
yeah,
the
I mean,
basics.
I watch it pretty much every day. I really am more fascinated with the movement in the altcoins. One in particular that we look at is Walton Coin, and
You mean like John Boy?
what? No,
We're so old.
yeah. So Walton Coin, I started looking at it $11. It literally imploded to $1.60, and now it's back to over $4. The movement in that is just unbelievable. I don't even know if it's real or if it's going to be around in a month, but that's what's out there. I'm just shocked, when looking at Bitcoin, that the SEC and whatnot is not really involved in regulating this or wants anything to do with it. And it's interesting because people can just start a coin. We can call it the Larry and Vince coin, and
Yeah.
come out with it. And the issue is nobody's really regulating it, and people are getting just destroyed buying all these altcoins. So
Right.
if I were going to trade it as a trader, there's pretty much one or two coins that I would trade, and other than that, everything else I would think is untradeable for the most part.
Remind me offline. I'll tell you a story about a coin called BitShares. Um, Something I can share publicly, but not right now in this forum. But I was contacted by some people at BitShares, BTS, I think is the symbol, and they were in the process of partnering with some company to buy an FDIC bank and et cetera, et cetera. And I wrote an article about it. And it was basically a conceptual article, not like buy BitShares. It was more like, hey, this is decentralization. If this works, it's really good. And I was contacted by their PR guy and privy to a couple conference calls. It's ridiculous what's going on behind the scenes in the sense that they put out they were buying an FDIC bank in Texas. And you can look this up. And then they made that announcement, and BitShares, being unregulated as they are and just trading OTC, skyrocketed. This was in, I think, May of this year. I'm not really sure. But
yeah,
and then it proceeded to dump.
We had a lot of
and
that.
they pulled all their PR, and someone's being indicted.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
But I would be leery again. I don't cover Bitcoin myself personally. It's an area that I am, I guess an expert is someone that's been in it a year or two.
Right.
So
right.
I don't consider, maybe I am an expert because I've been looking at it for a year, but I haven't made a trade, and could have bought it at 800. Didn't understand it. Couldn't do it through a regular brokerage account. Didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. And you know what? I could beat myself up, but the way I trade, if I doubled my money, I would have been gone. So 19
but right now, Larry,
is not in the cards for me.
But right now, it's if we could just, and I'm speaking about myself, right? If you remove your own biases and not look at it as investment, just look at it as something to trade. It's liquid enough to trade, and it's on futures, and basically the futures market is going to ruin it. As an asset class, but it's something to trade now. I mean, just instead of calling it Bitcoin, just call it oil coin in your mind, and then we can trade it.
Yeah,
I think.
Listen, it's a tradable instrument. I just don't understand it, and I like to understand the fundamentals, and the technicals are the same, on pretty much everything you look at, because it's a technical situation, but fundamentals and all of that I think are important, but for me, it's not
a core
really,
understanding of the market structure would help.
Yeah,
that would help.
I just want to shift from Bitcoin back to like the equity markets where I frequent, and it's just amazing to me what's going to happen when we do have a correction, because now the product that we trade is at 2,900. Okay, each 1% is 30 handles. If we have a 50 handle down day, it's not even 2%. And that would blow people out of the business. It would blow
Well, the
people
headline will
out of
be
water.
down only 2%, not down $50,000 per person.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's
No,
the deal.
I just think that, the movement, people are, like, we're looking at some put pricing in here, and I was looking at it with Mike, who works with me here, and it's like they have zero respect. Zero. I mean, they don't even think the market can move 5 S&P points, which is nothing. It's not even
Right.
20 basis points. It's like a zero. So to me, it's interesting where we are and what is going to happen, because if we correct 3% in a day, it's 100 handles. I mean,
But the Fed doesn't care. And let me just throw this out there as a possibility, because I've seen this pattern before. Powell, who is moderate to hawkish, comes out dovish at Jackson Hole. The stock market takes that as a cue that there won't possibly be a rate hike at the end of this year or early next year, and it starts pricing in a non-rate hike. I've seen Yellen do this. The stock market rallies, and then they get a little bit hawkish again, and they raise rates, and the stock market drops that 1-2%, but it drops from all-time highs. And although people are wiped out monetarily, because like
But
you're saying,
listen, there's no investor here, okay, that's
Right.
been invested in the stock market over the last 5 years that's going to get wiped out. Okay,
Well, that's-
we'd have to
I don't
come
mean-
in
I'm-
like 35%.
I don't mean.
to wipe
What I mean
people
is
out.
the
Okay.
capital eliminated.
No, without a doubt. I mean, it's more
Yeah.
of the trading capital eliminated, but
Right.
short-term trading, and listen, we're just at levels that are so above anywhere where really anybody has bought in size that really they're not going to get hurt. But again, if they lose 2% off their highs, they freak out, every investor. So, we're in an interesting environment. It should be interesting to see how it plays out. I think
A generation of people who haven't seen a bear market and and need their hands held all the time. I don't know.
Forget bear market. I have my brother-in-law is a PM, and the bottom line is anytime we have a down 2% move, people are freaking out, which makes
Right,
no sense.
right.
So, you got to keep an eye on that. I think there's a complete disrespect for volatility and puts here. Again, it's worked well to do that, but again, we believe that there's something brewing here, and this is a top for the market. Don't know where we trade, but
it isn't a blow off top yet. You have to agree with me there.
But
We haven't had that.
it'll never be a blow off top. I don't think.
Okay. Point being, it's going to be managed and
Well,
controlled in
no.
some way, shape, or form.
Point being, what's a blow off? A blow off used to be a 3% day or a 2% day. We can't.
Okay.
We haven't had anything like that. We haven't had an up 2% day in the whole rally.
So the alternative is just to stay with, just to try and narrow you, so I can think about it differently. If there isn't a blow off top before the sell off, that is likely, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we've had like a 6-year distribution top, right or wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the market was up 20% last year. It's up 10%. It's up 30% and it's up almost 40% from the low on election night. So I
Now
don't
we've
know.
got a 30-year Head and Shoulders that I haven't identified yet.
well, we're going to see how this thing plays out, but I believe that it's not that easy. And what's interesting, again, and I pointed it out yesterday in the chat and a little bit talking about it yesterday with you, is every day there's stock for sale. Every day they buy the market on the opening. It's the weirdest thing, and it's literally every day. Literally every day there's stock for sale, and literally every morning the market's higher. So I don't know.
The Swiss are buying it in the morning, and the Americans are selling in the afternoon.
I guess.
That's like, why else would you have people buying stock without puts being bought? Swiss, national central banks are buying equities because their own bonds in Europe are 0 or -%.
Yeah, but I think because of these trade tariffs and everything that China's getting out of everything that we have with them. They're the biggest investor in the world. I don't know. It's mystifying to me just to look at the market rallying pretty much every day off of air. But again,
how long can we remain an island is really the thing.
well,
And
we
that's
are,
what the trade
listen,
tariffs are.
we are certainly an island. DAX is down 4 or 5% for the year. Nikkei's flat. China's down 20%. Hang Seng's down 5%. London's flat. So it's all us.
Yeah.
But I guess we're the biggest, baddest, meanest guy out there. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, there's not much in the straddle, not much to do. Just looking for opportunities. Would fade oil up here into a little bit of a rally above 69.10. Maybe look to get shorted. And again, I don't see much. I would be a seller of S&Ps on a stop to enter, maybe in the 95 area, to try to get short.
If you're bearish, why not sell a call spread?
Yeah,
because it's too cheap, maybe.
Yeah, well, there's nothing in very much of anything for today.
I know.
So, you could sell the call spread for $1 or $2, but it's not going to benefit you. I'd rather be a seller of S&Ps, maybe about $2 to $3 lower than here, not in here. Because if we come in $2-3, we probably come in 10. So I think that's a better trade. But other than that, I don't see much. Again, Amazon's up 20. I don't know why. Google's up 10, reversing yesterday's down 10. Netflix is probably a little bit heavy after rallying 50 straight dollars. That's on the equity front. And there's nothing really else out there that I see. Again, I've said this before. I think the bigger trade here is long China. I think, it's a tough long, but I think that's a better long at this point in a mean reversion versus the U.S.
Maybe we want to talk to Greg about that as a long-term, maybe the Hong Kong dollar long-term. Or the yuan, because Hong Kong dollar is a little different than yuan in terms of liquidity.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to express it in currencies. I would express it in equities.
No, I understand.
FXI is where.
But I'm looking at de-dollarization being accelerated because of the tariffs, right? It just forces countries that are on the fence to either capitulate to the U.S. or get out of their dollars faster, and eventually. That's going to bolster Chinese stocks, and their float of currency will get stronger. That's just an opinion I have, longer term.
Yeah, makes sense. And that's it. That's what I see this morning. S&Ps are flat, basically to the tick. They just made a new low on the night, down a full $1. Not really anything to get scared of. You just got to buy this dip of $3 because you'll make money, and that's the mantra for the day. Oil's getting up into a level. I'm going to probably sell some oil here at 69.15. I'm going to put the order in, and we'll see. We'll see if that gets executed as a trading short. And that's it, really. I'll be back.
Just going out, so you can finish this up, Larry. The Turkish lira is running a little bit. It's up like 2.8% now. And as you said, day trade today, the next day. Keep your powder dry for September 1st surprises after the end of the month. That's my takeaway from what you're saying.
I think you're right, and hopefully we get a little bit of good trading today, and we'll be back before the opening with any ideas, and we're going right back to the chat room now, and we'll keep everybody up, and I'm happy you joined me again, and it's fun as always.
Cool.
All
Sweet.
right. Have a good day.
See you in the market.
All right. Take care.